There's a reasonably good chance you have no idea where this is. It could be Utah, Arizona, or perhaps the Gobi Desert, but it's not. This road leads to one of the more exciting journeys you could ever take, through an ancient land with some of the greatest archaeological treasures and surreal landscapes known to man. There's also a reasonably good chance you don't know who this is, but he's uniquely qualified to be your very special guide on the adventures you'll find within a place relatively few Americans have discovered. He was born and raised here, served in the military, and has flown, dived, climbed, trekked, and camped throughout the entire country. And so, while he may know this land better than just about anyone, he's not just any tour guide. He is King Abdullah II, and you are invited on the royal tour. If you've never considered going to Jordan, it's probably because this tiny kingdom is situated in a pretty rough neighborhood, surrounded by Israel, the Palestinian territories, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. But don't let that geography frighten you. Jordan is extremely traveler-friendly. It has an ancient history with some of the world's most significant religious and archaeological treasures, from the splendors of Petra to well-preserved Roman cities such as Jerash. It is a modern Islamic state with a considerable Christian population. It has an active nightlife. And you don't have to look far to find the beautiful people, as well as those who prefer not to be quite so free with their beauty. It's Jordan's social and religious tolerance that sets it apart from much of the Middle East. Perhaps because the country's leadership has always had strong ties with the West. It is only fitting that our journey begins at Ragadan Palace, in the center of Amman. His Majesty has invited me here for a brief chat before setting out on our adventure.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Have a good trip?
A long trip,
Long trip.
but I'm looking forward to it, though.
Glad to have you here.
Thanks. You're taking me on a little journey, I understand.
A long one.
Another long one, huh?
Yeah, when we get down there.
It may seem inconceivable to many people that an Arab head of state would clear several days from his busy schedule to take an American reporter on a tour of his country. But such is the unconventional style of this young monarch, a man who never expected to be king. Born in Amman in 1962, the eldest son of the late King Hussein and his British-born second wife, Toni Gardner, also known as Princess Muna, young Abdullah was raised in an environment of both privilege and hardship. Wanting him to learn the ways of the world, King Hussein sent Abdullah off to boarding school in the United States for his junior high and high school years.
So I became very familiar with American thinking, American customs, the way you deal with things, to the point that I have two switches. I can put the Jordanian switch on and I can put on the American switch. And to be able to understand another culture, I think, is a tremendous opportunity that I'm very grateful for.
But the young prince was always anxious to return home to join his family, as he did here for one of his father's birthday celebrations. By this time, King Hussein was married to his fourth wife, American-born Queen Noor. And it was not Prince Abdullah, but rather his uncle, then Crown Prince Hassan, who was the designated successor to the throne.
Treason! Fight!
After graduation from high school, the dutiful young son went off to Sandhurst Military Academy in England to train to become a career soldier in the Jordanian army. Upon returning home, Abdullah promptly began his military career, commanding both tank and attack helicopter units and rising to become a major general and head of Jordanian special forces.
I think for people to see members of the royal family carrying the burdens that they're carrying, and the ultimate burden of risking your life in defense of your ideals and of your nation, I think is a way of breaking down barriers that brings a royal family closer to its people, because you're willing to take the same risks that they are.
Unbelievable.
Abdullah took risks in his personal life as well. Like his adventurous father, the young prince had a passion for speed and daring. He was a champion rally car driver, skydiver, and avid scuba diver. But it was a beauty named Rania who would really capture his imagination. A Jordanian woman of Palestinian origin, she married Abdullah in 1993 and would soon bear him a son. But the young family was in for a shock. By the late 1990s, the world watched with sadness as King Hussein contracted lymphatic cancer and traveled several times to the United States for treatment. But the cancer proved to be incurable, and in January of 1999, knowing he didn't have long to live, King Hussein co-piloted his own aircraft home to Jordan for the very last time. I remember he came off the plane and kissed the ground.
Yes, and prayed his thanks to God for bringing him back safe and sound to his homeland.
Standing in the reception line on the tarmac was King Hussein's brother, then Crown Prince Hassan, who had held the reins of power in the king's absence and was expecting to soon inherit the throne. But in a surprising turn of events, the king announced that he was changing the line of succession, and the crown would instead be passed to his eldest son, Abdullah.
It's a shock when somebody says, I want you to have this responsibility. And I said, well, sir, this is something that I never wanted. It wasn't something that I ever aspired for. And he said, that's probably one of the main reasons why it's got to be you.
And shortly after that conversation, he left us. And then your life changed dramatically.
Very much so, yes. I had a wife and 3 children. So I had a family of 4, and then all of a sudden I had a family of 4 million. The tremendous responsibility and burden on the shoulders was hard to swallow. And I think that's been the most difficult, that my life is not really my own anymore.
Except when you can sneak out on the motorcycle.
Except when they allow me to sneak out. There's a lot more things that I want to do with you and your team that they're not allowing me to do, such as parachute and rock climbing. I've got everybody sort of trying to sabotage a lot of the plans that we have.
When I tell people I'm coming to Jordan, half the time they think I'm out of my mind. They think I'm going to be taken hostage, shot, there's violence.
Unfortunately, the perception of the Middle East, if something happens in one country, it means that there's a travel ban on people going to anywhere in the Middle East. If there's a problem or riots, as you just had recently in Cincinnati, doesn't mean I can't go and visit Boston. I think the best line that anybody ever said was my mother. If it wasn't safe, I wouldn't want my son to be living in Jordan. And Jordan is, thank God, the safest country in the Middle East.
Why are we doing this show together?
To be able to open people's eyes to what a magnificent land and nation that we have here, and the tremendous surprises and treasures that Jordan holds.
So over the course of the next 5 days, this young king will leave his official duties behind for the first time since he was thrust upon the world stage, and show us his favorite places in Jordan.
All right, clear on the left, clear on the right.
Our royal tour of Jordan begins in the king's private Black Hawk helicopter. Okay, so lots of heads of state have helicopters, but this is different. King Abdullah actually flies this one himself.
I learned how to fly helicopters when I was in the army. I'm using it probably as much as a car. I mean, with the pressure of work, the best way of getting around is by helicopter.
Here I'm taking you to perhaps my favorite spot in all of Jordan, the Wadi Rum or the Rum Valley. My father loved this place. He used to take us here when we were small children.
I recognize it from the film Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, it was filmed right here in Wadi Rum. I think it won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture in '63. It was the year after I was born. Lawrence of Arabia loved this pink desert and these craggy peaks. called the Wadi Rum vast, echoing, and godlike. And so I think this is the best place for you to get a glimpse into what many people feel is the soul of Jordan, the Bedouin. The Bedouins are nomadic tribes that have roamed the deserts for thousands of years, and they're still here today, living down there in those tents made of goat hair. You can see them right below us.
Wow, check it out. There's even a camel caravan down there.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Let's head down.
Peter, we call these guys the Desert Patrol. They used to be an army unit back in the days of the British Empire, but today they operate as both a border patrol and as a desert police force.
Getting up on one of these things, well, at least for me, not very pretty. It wasn't a whole lot of fun for the camel either.
They're it. And in certain parts of Jordan, that the only way you can patrol and secure is on camel.
And they enforce a whole different kind of law out here, don't they? It ranges from somebody misappropriating a sheep to
smugglers trying to cross into Jordan with illicit goods.
Oh, really?
I know they're part of the police. They're probably the toughest and most disciplined unit in Jordan.
And they're the last of a dying breed in a way.
Well, I don't think that they'll ever die out simply because of their historical significance. But most importantly, when it comes to understanding the Bedouins and dealing with Bedouin way of life, these are pretty much the most efficient way of dealing with those problems.
You see that Bedouin woman? Her life may seem very harsh to us, but she really understands the desert and knows how to make herself comfortable with what little she has around us. Basically, she gets almost everything she needs from her goats, from her food to her tent. We Jordanians feel a fondness for the desert people, and we honor their old ways. For instance, the Bedouins still maintain their code of the desert, where they offer food, drink, and shelter to strangers. You'll always be welcome in a Bedouin's tent, or even on one of their camels.
Camels are remarkable animals. These single-humped camels we're riding can easily walk 25 miles a day with about 1,000 pounds on their back for months on end. The camel rides are very enjoyable because it gives you a sense of history of going back thousands of years as you go across the desert plains or down through Wadi Rum. And going in a procession with a couple of friends on camelback is very stirring to the heart and the imagination.
We're progressing at a relatively slow speed right now, but if these guys wanted to take off, they could take off.
No, these things can move if you want.
But there are even quicker ways of getting around Wadi Rum.
Microlight aircraft, ultralight, will give you a bird's eye view of Wadi Rum.
And quite a rush as well from the looks of it.
Absolutely. Adventure travelers have only recently discovered this place, and it's suddenly become a very hot ticket.
But if you want even higher altitude thrills in Wadi Rum, you might want to try skydiving. Once again, they won't let me jump anymore. But that doesn't apply to the rest of my family, thank God. My younger brother, Prince Hamza, can't wait to jump.
The king isn't jumping for reasons of security. I'm not jumping for reasons of sanity.
It's really spectacular, and coming down through the hills is amazing. Really makes you realize how small you actually are in terms of the bigger picture.
Peter, there's one more thing I want to show you. As you know, people have been coming to Wadi Rum for years for the tremendous rock climbing, which is really world class. But now there's a hot new sport that's becoming all the rage, and I think you'll find this very amusing.
Sandboarding.
That's right.
You just find a giant dune, grab your board, and charge up to the top. There are no ski lifts here or anything of that sort, but you'll get a very, very good workout, but it's really worth it.
Your Majesty, have you tried sandboarding?
Not yet, no.
Well, okay, it might be a bit harder than it looks. As for me, I'm sticking to my ship of the desert.
Okay, Peter, enough adventure for one day. Up ahead is a Bedouin camp where we'll spend the night. Bedouin hospitality is world-renowned. I remember a trip when I was a small child with my uncle. We were out in the desert traveling along the Lawrence of Arabia route. As we got into Wadi Rum, in the middle of nowhere, this old man appeared on a white horse. He came over to us and said, these are my lands, and you're my guests, and I must give you lunch. And obviously we accepted, and he disappeared into the desert. He came back about an hour later with 15 sheep and prepared a meal for us. Well, it wasn't too long until we found out that what the man had done had taken his only possession, that beautiful white horse, and he'd gone and sold it and bought the 15 sheep for our lunch. So my uncle went out and brought the horse back and 15 more sheep and gave them back to the Bedouin. And really, that is Bedouin hospitality. It's what makes Jordan, Jordan.
So he's just welcomed us to his camp, and we asked about each other's families.
But this is a traditional Jordanian greeting.
Oh yes, I mean, Wadi Rum has many special memories for me, so I like to come out with my friends and my family and be able to camp and get away from the everyday problems of life.
Peter, it's getting late, and I've got quite a day planned for you tomorrow.
Such as?
All I can say is I'm taking you to a hidden city that was lost from maps for thousands of years. Now let's get some sleep.
Peter, this morning we're heading towards the lost city that I mentioned to you last night. It's Petra, and it's nestled in the heart of the mountains, and it's one of the most stunning sights in the world. And we're following in the 2,000-year-old footsteps of the camel caravans that brought spices from India on their way to the Mediterranean. Peter, just put yourself in their place. It wasn't an easy trip. They would creep along step by step for 2 months or more across this parched expanse, searching for water or trying to protect their cargo from bandits. Imagine how they must have felt when they arrived at the giant rock gates of this hidden city and entered the cool shadows of the Sikh, this 250-foot high canyon that snakes its way past carved treasures and into the very heart of Petra.
If we come over here, you can basically see the outline of a man leading a camel and a camel caravan. It must have been amazing to suddenly come into Petra and walk down the Sikh and then suddenly see a flourishing city.
So in a way, this is really their welcome sign.
Absolutely.
Wow. Amazing.
And you see the reliefs continuing
on down.
It never stops. Never stops.
You'll be happy to know we're leaving the camels behind and walking from here on.
Well, if you thought getting on the camel was tough, getting down off of it, they're downright embarrassing. And you stop laughing.
For thousands of years, travelers have walked through here anticipating their first glimpse of the wonders of this ancient city.
And you would come all the way through the gorge here, and every time you turn, you'd think it was happening, and then all of a sudden, you come right here, and there it is.
This is what you got.
Amazing.
It always takes your breath away. I mean, look at this amazing sight. And it just fills you with awe of how the civilization over thousands of years ago managed to be able to do something such as...
Well, the engineering to be able to carve this into solid rock.
Amazing. This is a temple for an old Nabatean king, an old tomb.
But they call it the Treasury Building.
They do call it the Treasury because over 100 and 150 years ago there were rumors that a lot of jewelry and gold was left in the big urns that were up on the top there. So people used to shoot at it, and that's...
I see the bullet holes up
you
there.
see the bullet holes.
But no treasury came down.
No.
And no treasure either.
No treasure. But Hollywood found gold here. You might remember that the Indiana Jones film, The Last Crusade, starring Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, it was shot here. And in that film, the treasury was the temple that possessed the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I remember it well, actually too well. Now, I'm not so sure I want to go in there. I mean, the place collapsed on them, didn't it?
Yes, but I will personally assure your safety while we're inside.
Wow, look at that. Look at the ceiling.
Yeah, and you can see the huge crack of one of the major earthquakes
That is a huge crack.
really was part of the downfall of the Nabatean civilization.
Once you get inside, it's a whole different experience entirely, isn't it?
Yeah, the acoustics are absolutely amazing.
Your Majesty, you're right. The acoustics are incredible.
It is simply amazing. I mean, the sounds just resonate off the walls here, and you can almost imagine the sounds of ancient travelers. It has such a hauntingly beautiful sound. At the height of its greatness before the time of Christ, approximately 30,000 people lived in Petra, people known as the Nabateans, living in the middle of the desert. They were incredible architects, as you'll soon see. They had little water, so the Nabateans cut these aqueducts into the stone and funneled the rainwater into fountains and baths and indoor reservoirs. Petra became a classical oasis, a regular stop on the trade routes, and the Nabateans grew very, very wealthy. And as their wealth grew, so did their vision for Petra. So they built these giant tombs for their kings as lasting tributes to the greatness of their civilization.
It was a very sophisticated culture, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. They even had live theater. Entertainers would perform for thousands of people in this ancient amphitheater. Petra was so splendid, in fact, that the Romans took it for themselves, and later the Byzantines. But somewhere around 800 AD, the trade route shifted, and it wasn't long before Petra was all but forgotten. It became nothing more than an ornate home for Bedouin shepherds, and over time was mostly covered up by blowing sand. As a result, Petra was lost from maps for 1,000 years. In 1812, a Swiss explorer disguised as an Arab rediscovered Petra, and the outside world has become enamored with this place ever since. Today, Petra has been recognized by the United Nations as a World Heritage Site, and in the last decade, millions of foreign visitors have seen its splendors with their own eyes. And Peter, while we're here, I want you to see one of Jordan's holy shrines, the tomb of the prophet Aaron. But I gotta warn you, it's a 3-hour hike straight uphill.
We made an unscheduled stop along the way. an isolated police command post where the officers invited us in for tea.
تطلع على الدير وعلى المذبح وهون الشباب وظيفية اثنين ببدلوهم شفتها.
Your Majesty, when you have those rare moments like today, when you can come up here and enjoy the hospitality and climb up to the top of Aaron's tomb, what goes through your mind?
It's just great. It used to remind me of how my life was before the changes, and be able to just get away from all the officialness and all the protocol, and just be able to sit with people and friends and just talk about the weather and about jobs and families. It reminds you of what you need to be able to do, and it just gets you back in touch with the people.
It puts it in perspective.
Very much so, yeah.
A 3-hour climb?
That's right.
Great. Whatever happened to that cool helicopter of yours?
Come on, Peter. You know you need the exercise.
Your Majesty, are we there yet?
Almost there. Still got a ways to go. That's what we're aiming for.
Oh boy. Okay. Thanks a lot. Your Majesty, how many steps to the top?
226.
And what step are we on now?
29.
Why are you laughing? Stop that laughing.
Almost there. Still got a ways to go.
Yeah, that's what you said a mile ago. Your Majesty, what does that sound like?
That's a verse from the Holy Quran, and it says, "In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful."
We made it. Now, Your Majesty, what is the significance of this tomb?
Well, this is the Prophet Aaron's tomb, Moses' brother, and it's revered by Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike. And the most important thing about Jordan, really, it is the only place where the prophets Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad came at one point or another through Jordan.
Wow, and now we made it. All the way, right?
This is only halfway.
What are you talking about?
We still have to get down.
Why are you laughing?
Flying helicopters allows me to forget all the problems. I forget all the problems of state and of the problems that we're facing, and just relax and cleanse my mind, and it's very therapeutic.
Peter, on this leg of the journey, we'll head south from Petra. I want to show you my family's favorite getaway spot in all of Jordan. It has an altogether different look from all the other places you've already seen.
Hey, I'm up for anything as long as I don't have to ride another camel.
Not unless your camel can swim, because I'm taking you to Aqaba, on the Red Sea. It used to be an old Turkish and later a British Army outpost. It's only been in recent years that Aqaba has started to be developed as a true resort destination. And to make it more attractive, we turned the entire area into a duty-free zone.
Your Majesty, what's always amazed me about this place is how short the distances are between the countries.
That's right. From right here, it's a short walk to Israel, which is right over there. And we can see Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Jordan is right behind us. Aqaba has miles of accessible beaches and beautiful reefs. The Red Sea is widely regarded as having some of the best scuba diving on Earth. What do you say? Should we have a closer look?
Wow, what a great day. Hi, Peter. How you doing? I'm okay. So where are we going today?
Well, we're going to head down south towards the Saudi border. There's some beautiful dive sites there, and the one that we're going to go to today is the wreck.
Tell me about the wreck.
Well, the wreck is a Lebanese registered ship called the Cider Pride that caught fire in the bay about 12 years ago.
We got to this particular vessel and the crew were already in their suits with their suitcases, and we realized it was an insurance ploy. They were trying to sink the ship for insurance reasons. We actually managed to put the fire out and save the ship, but it was so badly damaged from the inside it couldn't be used again for commercial uses. So we got the permission to clean the ship out and make it safe for diving. We sank the ship to build a new coral reef that would bring more sea life and improve the environment a bit.
It takes a few minutes to get down to the wreck. The ship's lying on its side in about 90 feet of water.
I always go to check to see how much coral has grown and the abundance of sea life that's now developed around this particular wreck.
This wreck is a lifelong adventure for me. Every time I return, there's always something new to see. I really hope that this is something my children can appreciate long after I'm gone. Diving in the Red Sea, you're never quite sure what you'll find. We're even trying to create a reef out of old army tanks, which some might think might be a much better use for them. There's a lot more fish there than there's been a year ago. A lot more color down there too.
Soon we headed back to Aqaba, and His Majesty let me pilot his yacht. How cool was that? Hey, who's the guy on the jet ski?
That's another one of my brothers, Prince Faisal.
Is everyone in the royal family a daredevil?
Well, let's just say we like calculated risks. But speaking of family, I've got some people I really want you to meet.
His Majesty, a dedicated family man, will often commute even for a few hours just to see Queen Rania and his children. And while they love the beach here in Aqaba, he has a special treat for the family.
You guys hold it together. Yeah, there you go.
The king has promised the kids a ride in this old Chinese motorcycle and sidecar. Hello, Your Majesties.
Peter, this is my son Hussein,
Nice to meet you.
and this is my daughter Iman.
Hi. I think I'll just flirt with her for a while.
The baby is Salma, and this is going to be her first motorcycle ride.
No, no. Okay, she's getting a bit bored. Let me take it out.
Here's Her Majesty. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
It's nice that it's safe enough here in Jordan that we can do these things without being totally surrounded by security. I just want my family to have as normal a life as possible.
Even the semblance of normalcy in this part of the world may often seem like an impossible dream. But King Abdullah, like his father before him, works hard to keep that dream alive.
A couple hours north of Aqaba by car or a few minutes by helicopter is a surreal landscape. It's the lowest point on Earth, 1,300 feet below sea level. And Peter, if you stop to examine the snowy white shoreline, you might be surprised with what you'll find. The water has a strange, oily consistency, but it does have special healing properties. But without a doubt, it's the most buoyant body of water in the world. It's the Dead Sea, so named because it's so salty and absolutely nothing will grow here. After your morning swim in the salty sea, you have to rinse off with fresh water. So I'm taking you nearby to the spectacular Mujib River for a little whitewater adventure. It may not look that impressive from up here, but from the ground, it's absolutely awe-inspiring.
Your Majesty, where are we going?
We're going straight up that canyon right there.
And where are we?
Well, this is the Mujib River, the Jordanian Grand Canyon. So to speak.
I mean, it's really beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it's probably one of the most beautiful places in Jordan. However, for the extreme adventure traveler, it is very treacherous terrain.
Now, I heard you say the words extreme adventure. So, Your Majesty, I'm going to take your word on that, and I'm probably going to hang back here.
Okay.
Have a good time.
See you later.
You got it.
I think Wadi Mujib is the hidden jewel of Jordan. I first came here when I was in the Special Forces many years ago. Traveling down this canyon where you know very few people have been through. It was covered with cobwebs. There were birds nesting on the ground. We could go and pick them out. They weren't used to people. The fish in the stream you could pick up with your hands.
You come around a corner and the hair stands up on the back of your neck because you see this rock formation or site that you've never seen before in your life. And it does take your breath away. And there's certain designs in the rocks that you wonder how that happened.
Canyon itself is really magical place to trek. We're trying to make our way to a stunning waterfall. This is one of the places I trained when I was a young officer. It's a hidden place and it's difficult to get to. It's accessible, but with prior permission, simply because it's such a wonderful location. It's sort of one of the best kept secrets of Jordan. It's arduous, and one has to be careful, especially in the springtime and the winter because of the rains.
Here you must also keep a watch out for falling rocks. As you can see, this giant boulder fell and lodged itself between the canyon walls.
The waterfall of this hidden canyon was really such a beautiful part of nature that took my breath away, and it was probably the most dramatic location I'd ever seen in Jordan.
If you look up, that's my little brother Hashim up there. Now we just have to get him down. Piece of cake. Hashim is in the special forces and he really gets into this stuff.
Oh, it's no big dramas. It's actually a lot of fun, and it's no big deal. Anyone can rappel.
Well, Peter would have had a rough time if he'd come up with this. But no, I mean, whenever you do anything adventurous like this, you always got to think of safety and common sense. So you got to make sure you got the right equipment. People know what they're doing.
It was good fun though.
Excellent. Well, your abseil was fantastic.
No,
Disappeared straight into the waterfall.
I was pleased.
Very good. After 2 hours of this is great.
It was getting late. Time to head back.
Indeed, our time was growing short, but we had done so much in just 5 days. Now it was time to head back, and this time by a slightly faster mode of transportation. Your Majesty, I want to thank you so much for taking an incredible amount of time out of your schedule to show me Jordan through your eyes.
Wait, is that it?
Your Majesty, the show's only an hour long.
But Peter, I can't show you Jordan in just an hour. There's a lot more I want to show you.
Your Majesty, I'm liking this a whole lot more than the camels.